So how is Donald Trump continuing to deal with the fact that he has lost this election? Well, according to reports from behind the scenes, he is consumed by his fury. That's what I'm reading. And look, I understand we should have a little bit of grain of salt when the news lines up perfectly with your expectations, but that's pretty much what I would have guessed, that he's consumed by fury. And bear in mind, the president hasn't made a public appearance since late last week. That was his Thursday night appearance. He has no public events on his schedule on Tuesday. I mean, why would he? He's only still the president for now. Why would he work or anything? But he does seem to be taking it pretty hard. There were reports from the Daily Mail, at least, that candles had to be lit because of the pervasive scent of fast food in the White House as they sort of shame ate their way through their feelings. But anyway, that's behind the scenes. So we do have not appearances by Donald Trump, but we do have the most official venue for the thoughts and proclamations of the president. And that would be Twitter, of course. So here's what he's been saying recently. We are making big progress. Results start to come in next week. Make America great again. But here's the thing. Results don't start to come in next week. The results came in. You just don't like them. Yes, the certifications are going to come in over the next week, but there's no reason to assume that those are going to be different than the vote totals. But at least based on this and things like we will win, which if you're going to do that, you should have done that last Tuesday, little buddy. So Rashad, he's whether he thinks so behind the scenes, he is projecting to his fans that this thing is still going to turn out well for them.
It's no surprise whatsoever. Remember, he's the same president who decided to project a lie about coronavirus because he said he didn't want people to panic. But every day he wants you to panic about the media. He wants you to panic about Democrats. He wants you to panic about whatever else that comes from the progressive movement of the American societal context. He wants you to panic about Black Lives Matter, but he doesn't want you to panic about an actual pandemic that's killing people. And even in that interview, he revealed he knew it was killing children and everything else. And at that point, we didn't even have one American death. So no, this is not a surprise that he's projecting a false image. Remember I said to you, based on one of our last shows, I said, listen, man, here's the code for Donald Trump. If he says it is not. If he says it is not, it is. So if he says he's winning, he is not winning. If he says that more votes are coming in for him, they are nowhere to be found. And here's the bottom line. I will give him some of these other states that they're contending. Remember, Joe Biden only needs 270, all right? And they're going through this whole voter fraud thing. I went on Donald Trump's timeline on Twitter, man. I have never seen so many flagged posts on Twitter in my natural life. Sir, if you and I had that many flagged posts on Twitter, we would no longer have a Twitter account. Okay, so you go down his Twitter account and he's reposting people like Ted Cruz. He's reposting Lindsey Graham. And I'm listening to what they're saying, and they're actually making the case for Joe Biden. In Ted Cruz's comments, he's saying, we found 6 people that voted who were dead, and we found another possible 15 individuals that should not have voted at all. Well, let's do the math. 6 plus 15 is 21. You're down by 50 to 60,000 in that state. Okay, let's find 50 or 60,000 more, and you may have an actual case. Remember, in the court of law, it's not enough to prove fraud took place or irregularities took place in an election. You must prove that they were both pervasive and systemic, which means you have to find the impacted group. Typically, they all have to sign an affidavit saying we were directly impacted adversely, and it has to be larger than the vote total between the two contestants. That is a lot to do. So while they're on national media, they're actually proving Biden's case that they don't have enough votes to overcome the total victory of Biden.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. 21, even if those are true, and you're being probably overly generous in assuming that they're true, it's not going to do it. You are going to need an army of the dead, an army of darkness voting to actually explain that thing, and I don't think that's gonna happen. I mean, he has his army of darkness, he calls it his base, but they're not dead. They're just misinformed, I would say. But and look, what you just laid out, the numbers there seem so clear that I don't think any objective person can look at what any of them are doing and say they genuinely think that he won, or even that they genuinely think they can convince a court to throw out enough votes to give him a win. They can be doing these things and saying these things for reasons other than that it will give them the victory in the end. There's grift of all forms.
Right.
But there is gonna be damage done along the way when Trump tweets things like, watch for massive ballot counting abuse, and just like the early vaccine, remember I told you so. Like the ballots have been counted. So that isn't even, like it's not even a thing of trying to get his people to go to Arizona or Detroit or Philly or whatever and yell to stop the count. The count's basically done at this point. There's like a few late arriving ballots or whatever that may or may not be counted. That's just, stuff's happening, be mad, corruption. It's like ad libs, but for the death of a democracy. That's basically what it is. And then that's too complicated. So then he just tweets out ballot counting abuse. Well, yes, okay, maybe it's an abuse of you when the ballots are counted and it goes against you, but that was just one of the many things that's been flagged out as misinformation. And I don't think he thinks he's gonna stay in office. I think that he's probably starting to realize that the Supreme Court isn't even going to save him. But what he is doing is locking in millions of Americans who supported him, who will now have even less faith and trust in democracy and will be primed for the next authoritarian or wannabe strongman who's gonna try to run to replace Donald Trump the next time around.
And it could be Trump. I said this a few days ago, Trump may run again in 2024. There's no constitutional prohibition unless he's arrested and in federal prison. That's the only way he could not run for president again, or he makes some kind of plea deal after he's president to where he will agree never to run again. But here's how deep it goes, man. In the state of Georgia, we have this uniqueness, right? We got 2 US Senate races in runoffs right now. Ossoff and Warnock on the Democratic side, Perdue and Loeffler on the Republican side. We don't have not one statewide elected Democrat in Georgia, not one. We used to run the gamut. We don't have one. There's a guy named Raffensperger. Raffensperger is the elected statewide Republican Secretary of State. This guy literally is the person who basically certifies the election, but the counties, and we have 159 counties in Georgia, each county certifies the election independently, sends it to the Secretary of State accepts it, and then it becomes certified. Well, both Senator Loeffler and Senator Perdue, Republicans, called for the resignation of their Republican colleague, Raffensperger, yesterday. Now, why did that happen? That happened because Trump and his cronies told them to do it. And they told them to do it to create what you just talked about. It's not going to change the outcome, but it creates more confusion, divides us even further. And let me put it this way. It wouldn't be a surprise to me if Trump simply parlayed all of this into some type of private enterprise deal after this is done.
Yeah, maybe. He's looking ahead to whatever the next step is gonna be. Maybe it's electoral, maybe it's running again, which if he's gonna do that, he's going to want to set up tens of millions of Republicans who think that thing was stolen from him. So he's never gonna admit that he lost. Or it could be for Trump TV. I don't know. But what I do know is that what a lot of Republicans will do, like when Brian Kemp tweets, as he did in the last day, that every legally counted vote will be counted, that's just what an election is. But he's obviously saying that clearly the implication is that there are votes that were not legally counted. And then he did the weird thing where he attached a photo of himself. Like it wasn't a link to anything. It was just the tweet and then a picture of him. Yeah. I don't understand it. If you're watching this, if I ever do that, tell me not to. That's a weird thing to do. I don't get it. That Tom Fitton guy always does that. It's weird. For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.